"You can't be here, old man. Step away from the memorial. That flag's not for you." That was the first thing the white police officer said, loud, firm, dismissive, as the elderly black man knelt quietly beside the war memorial, gently adjusting a small American flag that had fallen sideways in the wind. The man didn't answer. He just kept his head bowed, his trembling hands brushing dust from the tiny wooden pole, fixing the ribbon that had slipped down. A few people standing nearby began to notice. One mother pulled her child a step back. A man with a baseball cap chuckled and pulled out his phone. The officer stepped closer, his boots crunching on gravel. "You heard me. This is a public monument. You don't get to play dress-up patriot here." The old man slowly stood up. His frame was thin but upright. His coat, an old olive-green military jacket, hung off his shoulders like it had been with him through decades. A frayed canvas bag rested on his side, and stitched onto it was a faded patch, 3rd Recon Battalion. The officer glanced at it and let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Where'd you buy that patch, eBay? You don't even look like you could carry a rifle." Laughter erupted from a few onlookers, scoffs, side comments. "Bet he's just some wannabe vet looking for attention. Probably homeless. These guys always show up near Memorial Day." No one asked who he was. No one saw the old scars beneath the cuff of his sleeve. No one knew he had been there. Vietnam, Beirut, Panama, even Mogadishu. That his name appeared on no official record because his unit often didn't exist on paper. That he'd led men through jungle, sand, and mountain under radio silence for flags they never got to salute in public. No one knew. And no one cared to ask. The man just stared at the officer. His voice came low, gravelly, tired. "That flag doesn't belong to you either, son." The officer's face turned, eyes narrowing. Without warning, he ripped the small flag from the man's hand. Gasps rippled through the bystanders. He threw the flag to the ground. "That's it. Step away from the monument. Trespassing, impersonating a veteran, whatever fits." The man bent slowly, painfully, and picked the flag up again. He did not yell. He did not plead. He just brushed off the dirt as though the insult wasn't new. But someone in the crowd had seen enough. A woman, maybe a teacher, maybe a vet's widow, called someone. Not 911, not a complaint line. She called a number most people don't know. 30 minutes later, a convoy of black government SUVs rolled up to the memorial. The flags on their front bumpers weren't local. The doors opened, and from the lead vehicle stepped a man in full marine dress blues, medals shining, posture unshakable, 3 silver stars gleaming on each shoulder. The crowd fell silent. The officer who had grabbed the flag stepped back instinctively. The general scanned the area, and when his eyes landed on the elderly man, still holding the small flag, still standing beside the monument, he stopped. Then he raised his hand in a formal salute. "Brigadier General Isaac Rowland, sir," he said, voice loud enough to echo through the memorial plaza. "Requesting permission to stand with my commanding officer." The crowd gasped. The air changed. The past had just arrived, and it was wearing boots. The square had fallen into a stunned silence. The kind of silence that doesn't come from lack of noise, but from presence, from gravity. The old man looked up at the three-star general standing before him. Recognition passed between their eyes, not the kind forged in photographs or stories, but in memory, in fire. The officer who had mocked the man only minutes before now stood paralyzed, his mouth slightly open, his radio crackling against the deafening stillness. General Roland stepped forward and broke the line, crossing the invisible barrier that the badge had tried to draw between dignity and power. He extended a hand. "Master Sergeant Elijah Brooks," he said, his voice thick with something more than formality. "You saved my life in Al-Qaim, 1991, Operation Silent Ash. You told me to run while you held the line. I've been trying to find you for 20 years." The man said nothing, just gave a small nod. The crowd shifted, murmurs grew. That man saved a general? Wait, he's the real thing? One boy in a hoodie lowered his phone and whispered to his friend, "We messed up, bad." But General Roland wasn't finished. He turned to the white officer still standing stiff by the edge of the memorial and pointed. "This man does not need your permission to stand by this flag. This man raised it over battlefield after battlefield, while men like you were still learning to spell honor from textbooks." The officer started to speak, some defensive reflex, but the general cut him off. "No, don't explain, don't justify, just listen." He stepped back toward Elijah. "You still carry that same discipline, that same stillness. I remember it. You used to tell us, real service doesn't echo. It lingers. I never forgot that." Elijah finally spoke, his voice like gravel, slow and deep. "The flag fell. I picked it up. That's all." The general turned to the crowd now. No podium, no script, just truth. He says that's all. But let me tell you what "that's all" really means. It means he carried wounded men on his back through fire and mortar. It means he refused evacuation 5 times, choosing instead to extract teammates who wouldn't have made it without him. It means that when a comms post went dark in Kandahar, he rebuilt the antenna by hand, under fire, and got us airlifted in time to save 30 civilians. And when the war ended, no parade, no camera, no retirement ceremony. Just a folded uniform, a fading ID, and silence. The general's voice cracked now, just slightly. He was the reason I didn't come home in a coffin, and yet he stands here today, mocked, pushed, accused of not being enough. The crowd was quiet again. Not the stunned kind of silence, the shameful kind. General Roland turned to the police officer again. "Tell me, how many flags have you bled for?" The officer didn't answer. He couldn't. Elijah adjusted the little flag in his hand, finally placing it gently back into the soil beside the monument. "They always forget," he said softly, almost to himself, "until someone remembers loud enough." The general nodded. Then let me make sure they remember. He turned to the waiting convoy. Bring it. Moments later, a Marine officer stepped out, carrying a velvet box. He handed it to the general, who opened it right there in front of the growing crowd. Inside was a medal few civilians recognize, the Navy Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor. The general held it high, then knelt before Elijah Brooks. They never gave it to you, not officially. You were off book, your mission sealed in shadow. But the paperwork cleared last year, and I made damn sure this moment happened in daylight. He pinned the Navy Cross to Elijah's old jacket. The fabric was frayed, but it held. The crowd erupted, not in cheer, but in something better, reverence. People began to step forward. A firefighter saluted. A veteran in a wheelchair removed his cap. A young woman pressed her hand to her heart and whispered, "Thank you for your service." Even the skeptical teenager wiped his eyes discreetly. And then the unexpected. The white police officer, Officer Langley, stepped forward, hat in hand. He looked at Elijah Brooks, and he did not offer excuses. "Sir, I'm sorry. I didn't know." Elijah looked at him, not with scorn, not even disappointment, just stillness. Then he said, "Next time, know before you act. The uniform doesn't make the man, the heart does." And for the first time, Officer Langley saluted with both hands steady, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. 3 days after the incident, Fort Harrington was quieter than usual. The usual clatter of morning drills, the bark of orders, even the rumble of troop trucks seemed subdued, like the base itself was holding its breath. In the command office, General Rowland sat behind his desk, the Navy Cross case still open beside him. The award had been formally entered into Elijah Brooks's military record, but he knew that wasn't enough. Because medals rust, memory fades, but legacy needed roots. So he made a call. "We're renaming the ceremony. Effective immediately, Memorial Flag Detail at Fort Harrington will be known as the Brooks Formation, and I want a full honor plaque installed at the base of that monument with his name." Across town, Elijah didn't know any of this was happening. He was back at the bus stop. Same coat, same cap, same flag. Not because he needed to be, because he chose to be. For 40 years, Elijah Brooks had visited that memorial every Thursday morning, rain or shine. He never spoke of it, never posted it, never asked for anything, not even thanks. He simply stood. If the flag was down, he raised it. If it was frayed, he replaced it with one he paid for himself. Until that day, no one asked why. Until that day, no one cared. But now they did. A small crowd gathered every Thursday, quietly, respectfully. Veterans, students, police cadets from the local academy. Some just watched. Some saluted, and some brought flags of their own. Then one morning, something unexpected happened. Officer Langley showed up again. Not in uniform, not for show, but with a toolbox in his hand and his young son by his side. He didn't approach Elijah directly. He just knelt at the base of the flagpole and began repainting its chipped foundation. Elijah gave him a slow nod. Langley looked up and said, "This time I'm learning, and he is too." The boy saluted Elijah clumsily. Elijah reached into his coat pocket and handed the child a small folded flag. "Carry that. Don't wave it unless you mean it." The boy's eyes widened. He nodded solemnly. Later that afternoon, the mayor's office held a press conference. Not at City Hall, at the bus stop. The same bench Elijah had collapsed beside just a week earlier. The mayor didn't give a long speech. He simply unveiled a bronze plaque set into the concrete under the pole. It read, "Elijah Brooks Memorial Flagkeeper." He stood when no one watched. He served when no one saw. Let us never overlook the silent ones again. At the mayor's invitation, Elijah stepped forward. Microphones angled toward him. Reporters leaned in. He looked at them, expression unreadable. And then he said, "All I ever wanted was for the flag to fly right." He paused, then turned toward the camera. "And for this country to see people like me, not just when we're needed, but when we're still here." There was nothing else to say. But that sentence, just those few words, got replayed on national news, talk shows, military channels, podcasts. It hit something deeper than politics or protocol. It was about presence, and what happens when a nation forgets who it stands on. That year, the police department instituted a new policy. Every recruit would spend 1 week volunteering at the VA hospital. Every officer would attend a training titled Silent Service, Respect Before Recognition. Officer Langley offered to teach it. At the academy, a laminated card was added to every new cadet's folder. It said, "Before you ask for respect, make sure you recognize it in others. The man standing still might be the one who once carried you home." Back in Elijah's neighborhood, change came in subtler forms. The grocery clerk who once followed him through the store with suspicion now offered to carry his bags. The boy who once snickered at him now walked beside him on Thursdays, helping straighten the flag's folds before it rose. And Elijah? He kept showing up, until the day he didn't. One Thursday morning, the flag was already flying, perfectly, but Elijah wasn't there. A note had been left at the base of the flagpole in a folded envelope marked, "To whoever still looks." It read, "If you are reading this, then I've finally missed a Thursday. That's all right. I gave this flag more of my years than I expected. It gave me back more than I could have hoped. Keep it flying. Not just the cloth, but what it means. Respect, honor, and the idea that anyone can carry greatness, even if they carry it quietly. Don't wait for medals, and don't hand out your judgment like it costs less than your silence. I was never asking to be remembered, just not to be erased." Elijah Brooks, Master Sergeant, U.S. Army retired, Keeper of the Flag. The city declared that day Elijah Brooks Day. Every flag at every municipal building was raised by a veteran. No music, no speech, just stillness. And in the heart of the city, at the same corner where judgment once spoke louder than truth, a statue now stands. It's not grand. just a bronze figure, coat, cap, flag in hand, looking up, silent. And every Thursday, someone new stands beside it. Because legacy doesn't fade when it's built on quiet footsteps. It echoes, in salutes, in flags, and in those rare men whose stillness teaches the rest of us how to stand.